Hello, I'm Amanda. I'm a coach over in the Arizona State University Psychology Student Success Center. And today we're going to be talking about how to write a CV. So a CV is a document that is similar to a resume in that it's going to convey a lot of this similar information, but a CV is structured a little differently and will prioritize different information. And it has a very specific format. So today we're going to talk about how to take your information and put it into a CV. A CV is comprehensive, so it's going to include a lot of information, some of which might not be found on your resume, but its focus is more education and scholarly. But there will be places for you to put your professional experiences as well, because those are important. A CV notably is going to be presented reverse chronologically. So typically your resume will kind of go in a chronological order, but here the CV really does want to showcase your more recent accomplishments and most relevant accomplishments first. And then again, a really important piece of the CV is that it's concise. So a CV doesn't want to have a lot of, or you don't want to have your CV have a lot of extra words or just seem really long. It's okay to really be crafty with the words that you choose to use so that you don't use so many words that people kind of lose interest. So let's go over the different sections of the CV. So your CV is going to include education, your experience sections, and there's several different subsections that can be included in experience sections, your honors or awards if you have them. And then there are also other optional sections that can be included as well. Now, as I'm saying this, if you don't have like honors or awards, or if you're not quite sure if you have some of these other sections, that's okay. We're going to present all of the different things that might go into a CV today. But if you don't have that particular section, it's completely fine to leave it off. And best rule of thumb, instead of to have a header and leave it blank, just don't put the header in. So the first section that always comes up in the CV is the education section. So this section definitely doesn't move around in your CV. It'll be first. And things to include will be the school. Now that sounds pretty, you can guess that it needs to be added in. However, the school, you want to spell out Arizona State University if that's where you're getting your degree. But additionally, it's good to put in the specific college. So if you're in the School of Life Sciences, you'll want to include that full name as well. You'll also want to list the degree or degrees that you're pursuing or have achieved, including any minors. Now, adding your GPA is helpful if it's helpful. So if you're proud of that GPA, absolutely include it. However, if it doesn't really do anything for you, you can feel free to leave it off. A lot of different applications, say for graduate school, some scholarships, maybe not all scholarships, but some of them, if it's relevant to that scholarship, will ask for your transcripts if they want this kind of information. So it's okay to leave it off of the CV. If you've completed or are working on a thesis project, this is also a really great place to put it. So it's right up front. And you'll want to include the title and the completion dates or projected completion dates of the thesis project. So we're going to get into a couple of examples just so you can see what it looks like. Now here, and again, think of it this way. This is one way to format it. There's several ways to format your CV, but it's important to know that you do want some headers and to make it really organized and neat and tidy. So here's an example. We have education as the header. And then you can see they've listed Bachelor of Science with Honors Psychology. So this is the degree. They listed a minor. And then College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Arizona State University, everything spelled out. We don't want to make people guess on what our acronyms mean. So we're not going to say ASU. We're not going to abbreviate any of these names. They need to be written out. This person elected to include their GPA. It's a solid GPA 3.4 or 3.5. So again, that's a solid GPA that they've listed there. And so they've elected to add that. However, again, you don't have to. And then they have a projected graduation date, or it looks like they graduated already. So here's another example, same example, but now we've added in a thesis project. So this is an example of how to do that. Thesis project, the name, and again, you can format this how you want. The effects of positive parenting on future cognitive outcomes, and then projected completion date. So if it hasn't been completed yet, that's totally fine to put a projected date. Otherwise, go ahead and put when it was completed. So this is the education section. If you have any prior, associate's degrees or things like that, those can be added here as well. The next sections are going to be the experience sections of the CV. And there are a number of different sections that you can elect to include, but you'll want to choose to kind of prioritize the most relevant to the least relevant section. So for instance, we have research and/or clinical experience. Well, in an academic CV, that's a pretty strong type of experience. And so we want to kind of prioritize that first. So that might be the first thing you put in. Other optional sections of your CV could be internships, teaching or tutoring experiences, or other professional experiences. So other professional experiences could be jobs that you've held. Now, some people might ask, well, what if I don't have any research experience? That's fine. Just leave off that title, so that subheader, so that you're not leaving something blank, and then just list what you do have. The idea here is that you're going to prioritize these different sections based on what's most relevant. So that's going to look different, right? So if you have a research experience and your other professional experience really ties into it, maybe you kind of move those jobs up a little bit higher than an internship. Maybe that wasn't as relevant. So this is going to look different depending on you and what's the most relevant. Important to know, inside of each of these sections, you're going to go in, like we mentioned before, reverse chronological order. So give us the most recent experiences within each section first. So we have some examples for you. As you can see, we have a subheader. In this case, this is an example for research experience. And we have the name of the lab, what the position was, where it happened. So Arizona State University, Tempe, Arizona. Importantly, in your experience sections, you'll want to list your supervisors, right? So if it's your research experience section, we're going to list your PI. If it's your job, you're going to list your boss, right? Your supervisor there. So make sure you include these names. So very much resume-like. As you can see on the right, we have a date range. So again, you don't necessarily need to put, the day, but we definitely want month, year. And if you're still doing it, put present. Now, the next part of it, we want to have some bullet points that really give us concise statements about what you did within this role. And a really great rule of thumb to do that is to start with an action word, so a verb, right? And this is going to speak to your contribution. Then list the project or task. And then if you can, list an outcome. And so we'll show you the example here. I have it highlighted in red boxes. So we have attend, so that's the action. Weekly laboratory meetings, so laboratory meetings would be the project or task. To develop lab protocols and discuss progress. So that would be the outcome, right? So this is saying, instead of just being like, oh, I went to lab meeting, right? Okay, well, that's nice, right? But this is telling me the action and then the outcome. So you understand, well, what was the purpose of the lab meetings and did you contribute? And so this tells me, this person was active in their lab and they're discussing progress and what's happening within the different studies they're working on and developing lab protocols. Well, that's a really great skill. So again, action word, project or task, and outcome. So we'll show you another example. We've got two more examples here. of different kinds of experience in case you don't have research experience. So here's an example of the professional experience section. So the top example is maybe a relevant job to your academics. This is a student success center coach position. Again, the same information, but I'm going to highlight here. So develop statistics training for coaches to improve tutoring session outcomes. So you can see develop, that's the action word. And that's a pretty strong action word, right? You develop some materials. That's pretty great. So be careful and helpful to the people that are reading your CV, that if you developed that means that you really took an active role. And so this tells them a little bit more just by using a really great verb there. Develop statistics training. And then here's the outcome: improve tutoring session outcomes. So again, the idea that you understand why it is that you're doing the actions that you're doing and what you contributed. Okay, well, what if you don't have any of those kind of experiences, but you do have work experience? So we have an example here, Starbucks barista. So sometimes people feel like, oh, well, that doesn't seem very relevant. Should I even include it? Absolutely. But think about what skills and what experiences that you had that can really translate into something else. Depending on what your CV is supposed to do for you. So if you're trying to get into grad school or you're trying to get an internship, how can this communicate into that? So we have an example highlighted here. So provided, again, this is your verb, attentive and consistent customer service. So this is the task, to between 80 and 100 customers a day, ensuring customer satisfaction with both products and experience. So this could have been, I serve people coffee, right? And that could be how you said it, but that doesn't give us that skilled part of what the job is. Customer service is not easy, right? And ensuring customer satisfaction, and that's your outcome. This is what I want to accomplish with this task that I'm performing, really shows an attentiveness to what it is that you're doing within this role. So even though this doesn't necessarily translate into maybe working in, a psychology internship or something, right? It does show that you know how to work with people, that you understand the services that you provide impact outcomes with others. So think about the strengths and the skills that you have, even if they don't directly convey. There are translatable skills that are helpful for you. So that's the experience section. And again, there's a number of different subsections that you can put here. The previous section that I just showed with the research experience can be in the same CV as this professional experience section. And then we're going to add honors and awards sections of the CV. Now, again, if you don't have these, that's totally fine, and just leave them off. But if you do, this is how you're going to incorporate them. You can see that we have an example at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to want to list the scholarship name and the dates. So when thinking about dates, just make sure to think about if you're going to give a range, that implies that you've gotten it every time that it was given during that date range, or that it renewed every time. So if you may have gotten a reward or an award in like 2018 and then again in 2020, but not in between, maybe separate them out so that they don't look like a date range. So just be careful about what you're communicating with date ranges. So here, this person has College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Dean's List certificate. So something like this doesn't need further explanation. Everyone knows what a Dean's List is. So people who are reading your CV and considering you for that scholarship, that internship, graduate school, they're going to understand what that is. So it doesn't need any more explanation. But some things need a little bit more clarity. So first, spell out any acronyms that you might have encountered in these different scholarships and awards. So for instance, the WISP scholarship, it's a really great scholarship. But saying WISP scholarship doesn't really tell you very much about what it was, right? So we want to spell it all out. So we've got Women Inspiring Scientific Progress. that is a really cool scholarship. And now I know what it's about because reading it, okay, I get it. It's about women and it's about science. And so this is more academic. And so that gave me clarity. And as the reader who may not be familiar with it, I understand why you got it more. Sometimes you can't really spell out an acronym and make it clear. So the last example on the bottom is the Olivia Howard Award, right? Now, if that's the name, there's nothing to spell out. Well, that still doesn't tell me very much about what that award was for. So it might be helpful to the reader if you kind of give a little context. Don't write out a paragraph or a couple long sentences. This should be really short and really concise. But for instance, here we put Olivia Howard Award for community involvement. Okay, well, now I know what this is about, right? It could have been Olivia Howard Award for academic achievement or for, success in the arts, right? But this gives me an idea of the type of award that it was, and then help me understand how well-rounded you are, because now I have a dean's list, so you're academically successful, something about science, and then you're involved in your community. And that's a lot more helpful than having, a couple of acronyms that I don't understand. So, showcase these achievements by really making them understandable to the reader that might not be familiar. And then the final sections, there's several that you can include. Now, if you don't have it, that's okay. But again, here's how to incorporate them if you have them. So publications and poster presentations might not be something that you have, but if you do, they're pretty prestigious, right? Particularly if you're an undergraduate student trying to get into graduate school or into an internship. So we want to move these a little earlier on into the CV. So for instance, if your publication comes out of the research lab that you have your research experience in, this section can come right after that. So it flows nicely into it. So here we have an example of a poster presentation that somebody gave. So I'm not going to go into all the elements. This is just really an APA formatted poster presentation. There are some really great resources out there that can help you put together APA formatting for your poster presentation and your publication. But if you're having a difficult time navigating those things, please go ahead and come to us in the Student Success Center and we can kind of help you format it properly. But this is one example of a poster presentation. Other sections that you can include would be professional memberships, and this would be listed later than your experience sections. Professional development. So say you had some leadership training or management training, something like that. Those things look really good. And so we want to make sure to list those things. References, if you include them, will always be last. Sometimes in CVs, they ask for 3 to 4 references. And so make sure those go last. But make sure that you also contact those references and let them know that you have listed them on your CV. Probably best to ask permission first, then tell them that you've listed it. So here is an example of professional memberships. So we have professional organizations, so Phi Beta Kappa, Psi Chi, and then ASU Fusion Dance Squad. So I love this example. This is a coworker of mine. It says here co-captain. So not only does it show this versatility in this person, but anything that you any group or any club that you are a part of, that you took on some kind of leadership role or you just took on a little bit more responsibility is great to put here because this person is a co-captain, right? So being a captain of an organization or a club, for instance, tells me that you have leadership skills. It communicates that you have some kind of organization and communication skills, right? So what a great way to showcase that because this didn't really fit anywhere else in the CV. So professional organizations can kind of give you a little bit more depth if you're involved in things other than just academic and work endeavors. So that's all of the tips and tricks that we have for you for your CV right now. But come and see us and we can definitely help you put a CV together or look at it with fresh eyes. Sometimes you're working on something like a CV or a personal statement and it just, you could read over it 4 or 5 times and you don't even see it anymore because you've worked on it so much. So come and see us because we can be that fresh set of eyes to give you more information. So Student Success Center right now, During the pandemic, all of our appointments are via Zoom. You can go to our website. The best way to do it is I just Google Arizona State University Psychology Student Success Center. And then as you can see, there's this really big maroon button that says make an appointment. You click on that, it takes you to the scheduling, and then you have options for all sorts of different times of day. You can pick your tutor. And then you'll receive an email with a link for Zoom link, and then we'll see you when you schedule. So thanks for joining me today. And I hope I see you in the Student Success Center, and have a good day.